like, I didn't see any snacks. I didn't see like I didn't see a full brass band.
Hello, and welcome back to episode 3 of Gibbs It To Me Straight, an NCIS rewatch podcast. My name is Ashley J. Williams, and I am joined today by my co-host, Robby Thesword. Robby has the dubious honor of having watched every episode of NCIS, and by contrast, I have the blissful ignorance of never having seen a single episode.
All right, so if this is your first time here, hello. We are venturing forth on dissecting, critiquing, and more or less just getting real frustrated about the classic early 2000s procedural crime drama NCIS, starring the likes of Mark Harmon and David McCullum. We are here to talk about each of the episodes, break them down, talk about how dumb they are, and just overall figure out what the heck people were doing back in 2003 and also now. It's still being made.
And you're an expert on NCIS. You've seen all the episodes. You've in preparation for this episode of episode of the podcast, you've watched it again to kind of refresh your memory and taken some notes. And I, Ashley J. Williams, don't know a damn thing about this show. Well, I know as much as I know from the last 2 podcast episodes we've done. So I'm now familiar with the characters Gibbs and I'm now for Abby, right, and Ducky and Denozo. So I'm kind of familiar with the characters and kind of where they are, kind of what their personalities are like. But I really don't know a lot about the show overall. And as a matter of fact, just to kind of level set, what does NCIS stand for? It must be investigative service of some sort. But
it's Naval Criminal Investigative Services.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever said that in the previous episodes. So
if we did, it was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. Cool. Okay, so you're going to walk through this particular episode, and I'm going to give you my reaction.
Absolutely. This episode is entitled Sea Dog.
Sea Dog. Okay, so that's SEADOG, Sea Dog.
That is correct.
Okay.
We here at Gibbs It To Me Straight, we have a little game we like to play at the beginning of every episode called Freaky Agent Bundy. This game refers to the 3 iconic roles of Mark Harmon's career, or at least the ones that are party to me and my youthfulness. Freaky coming from the 2003 Freaky Friday film. Agent referring, of course, to his role as Agent Gibbs in NCIS. And Bundy referring to when, in 1986, he played Ted Bundy.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned in a previous episode that he just seems like too nice of a guy to play Ted Bundy. I have not seen any of the videos or movies or anything that you've drawn the source material from, so it's a real guessing game for me when we do these.
And that's the way I like it. Yeah. That's the way I like it. Now, actually, there's a fun fact about the Bundy movie, which is that after the movie came out, while Bundy was in prison, he got a bunch of fan mail where people were, like, just going gaga over him because of how hot Mark Harmon was in the movie.
I wish I could say I was surprised, but I'm just not.
Yeah.
Surprised.
Yeah, and then he got voted people's sexiest man alive or whatever.
Well, Mark Harmon did, not Ted Bundy.
Yes, not Ted Bundy. Yes.
Okay.
All right, so
you're going to play me a clip, and I have to guess.
Yes.
Which of these 3 video vehicles he's been in, which one it's from.
That is correct. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a clearance here, and I'm going to give it to you. We've only got a 10-second clip.
You know what? I'm not really a prying kind of guy, but just for the heck of it, I was wondering what you were doing on the eve of our wedding, straddling some guy on the back of a big black Harley.
Okay, so you've sort of given it away there, right? Because I think I know the right answer to this, and I'll tell you how I got to that conclusion. First, he mentions wedding, and we know that in NCIS, Agent Gibbs is divorced. In fact, he's thrice divorced. That gave me an opportunity to roll my R. Thrice divorced. And we also know that Ted Bundy, I don't believe he ever married. So that has to be from Freaky Friday.
Gosh darn it. You're too good. You're too good. You are absolutely correct.
Yeah, I'm 3 for 3. Good
You
for
are.
me. Wow. So you're going to have to make it harder for me in future episodes.
Whenever I was coming into this episode, I was even thinking like whenever I was putting all of this together, I was like, well, it's the third episode. It only feels natural that within the first 3 episodes, I should give each option once before I do all of the other ones,
Of
right?
course. Yeah.
It only felt natural.
Okay, so what you're saying is that as of episode 4, it's going to get really hard. We're going to crank up the difficulty.
Once it gets to episode 4, I mean, I'm not going to do anything where I'm just like taking individual snippets of single words.
Right.
I'm not going to do that.
Okay. All right. Well, I look forward to the challenge. So we're starting with where are we starting?
So we are talking about the episode Sea Dog, and like many of these television shows, we are starting famously with just another one of those cold opens where we have no real context for what's going on outside of, it's a place probably near a naval base or where someone that is in the Navy or Marines lives. Could be anywhere. But we are just at a place. This one is opening in a way that's very reminiscent of Jaws, the opening of Jaws. We open on a scene of some youths, some teens, actually it's college students, that are sitting around on a beach in Virginia, just drinking, just having a fine time, when one of them hears gunshots off in the distance. I've got a clip.
Wait, you hear that?
Yeah, I've always dug the 80s.
She's always dug the 80s. That's all. I mean, hey, the guy hears gunshots and then he's like, "Hey, did you hear that? Those obvious gunshots?" And then the girl, who's either like just chilling and having a good time and doesn't want to have to deal with it, or is intoxicated to some degree, is like, "Yeah, I like this music too."
Well, to be fair to her, and I did live in the 80s. I saw it. There were a lot of gunshots in the 80s.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just she was reminiscing over the violence of the 80s. So is it just true of these episodes that they're going to do a cold open, or is it a rule or no?
Almost, yes, almost always.
And it adds to the lurid quality of this, because I'm just going to guess that in these cold opens, they probably start with unsuspecting civilians and probably young people, and then they juxtapose that against an extreme act of violence. Is it that kind of how that goes?
Yes, like we saw in the second episode, whenever there was this fairly mundane activity where it's just 2 young people parked in the back of a car trying to begin a relationship, and then out of nowhere just a man crashes through the roof of a car.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
I was trying not to cough in the middle of it, but
okay,
it
you were
is
coughing. I thought you were laughing.
It is,
Sorry.
But in a similar way, this is somewhat similarly comedic, because right after this guy hears these gunshots, also I'm pretty sure like in the clip of the thing, he reacts the first time before the first gunshot sound effect plays. So he's just like looking around out of nowhere, and then he kind of like snaps his head one side, and then the first gunshot sound effect plays. I mean, like he somehow had a premonition.
You're complete. Well, there's that. There could have been, a telepathic thing. You're completely discounting the possibility that he has spidey sense, right? I mean, I think you're being a little harsh on this show.
I think at the end of the last episode, because there was a part of an episode, and I think some of it exists in this one too, where I think that there is an argument to be made over the course of this show. We could say that some of these characters do definitely have some kind of supernatural or paranatural abilities, simply because they must, otherwise the show shouldn't be able to exist. Like the way that they behave feels like the conclusions they jump to, it doesn't feel like those should be possible unless there is something further going on within this show.
Yeah, imagine a NCIS. Sometimes my southern accent comes through. It's very annoying. Imagine an NCIS type show that is based on the paranormal, like NCIS X-Files.
Exactly.
I guess that was the X-Files, so never mind. Okay, every idea has been done before. Okay, all right.
So after this young man hears these gunshots, he then turns and he takes the remote and turns off the music, which is playing out of someone's very large speakers in the back of their car, and everyone sort of yells at him and is like, "Hey, what'd you turn the music off for?" And then they all hear more gunshots, and then they all just sort of start looking around like they're kind of afraid, and then one of the guys is like, I don't know, man, maybe it's just fireworks. And then they hear this roaring engine running through the water on the beach before they see a boat, a small fishing boat, just start roaring towards the beach. And the young man that heard the fireworks sees this, and they see the boat on the beach is full of bullet holes. And the young man then says this.
Fireworks my ass. It's all shot up.
He's very perceptive. This is an audio podcast, but for the listener, the boat was full of gunshot holes. So he could be a member of NCIS, honestly.
Honestly, if he knows even the slightest amount about opioids, he has a head over DiNozzo.
No, there's a deep cut on episode 3 of a Fletcher podcast. Well done. Well done, Robby. Okay.
Thank you very much. So after that, we end our cold open. We go into the theme song, and we follow, of course, with Gibbs entering the office, and we see a tiny bit of what is sort of, or must be, the routine of this team at NCIS. I think we learn, but not necessarily explicitly. If you go onto IMDb, the International Movie Database, and look at the synopsis for NCIS, then you will see that this show supposedly follows the major incident response team, or whatever they're called. Like, that's who this part of NCIS is. And we see a little bit of their routine. He enters, and then he starts talking to Agent Kate and Agent DiNozzo, or I should say Agent Tony. Tony and Kate, and asks about, hey, do we have any things that we could, do we have any things that we could go out on assignment for? And DiNozzo just sort of starts throwing stuff all around, like, well, what if we do, there's this one guy that, was caught shoplifting somewhere. And Gibbs goes, do you know of anything that's worth more than, $50,000, which I guess is some kind of cap for them. Like, they don't investigate unless there's some sort of extraordinary amount of monetary loss. But Gibbs shoots it all down until Kate finally says, oh, he's been trying to find something all morning because there's a sexual harassment lecture at 9:30.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering where the kind of twist would come in with him, DiNozzo being kind of a sleaze bag. And I'm going to apologize in advance for this joke, but this is for Truly Esoteric, our sole listener who hates this character. It's more like DeBozo, right? Okay, I may edit that part out, but anyway. All right, I'm with you.
Okay, and we have a small clip.
Oh, he's been searching for a case, any case, since I came in.
All agents not working active cases are to attend a sexual harassment lecture at the NCIS Human Resource Training Center at 0930 hours today.
I cannot sit through another one of those. I will shoot myself.
Gibbs throwing himself into the ring a little bit.
Well, to be fair to him, I work in corporate America, and I have attended a bunch of those things, and they are terrible.
Oh, I mean, in the limited capacity that I have in the jobs that I have worked, where you don't even go to lectures, you just log on to a horribly outdated website, and then you watch a PowerPoint, but in the form of a video, and then it asks you, did you watch the video?
Yeah.
And that's the entire thing.
Yeah. Oh, they're awful. The acting is terrible, and oh god, I have PTSD from.
Mine doesn't even have acting. The ones that I've done are all just reading.
Well, mine I wouldn't call what the ones that I've seen acting per se, right? But I mean, so I'm a little sympathetic to Gibbs. Obviously, I'm not sympathetic at all to DeBozo. He's going to start calling him DeBozo from now on. But okay, so a little bit of office banter up front, just so we kind of get a feel for the characters. And Agent Kate, is the former Secret Service agent, right?
That's correct.
Right, and Agent DiNozzo is, he's. Where does he fit in the hierarchy? Like, is there a hierarchy? I mean, Gibbs obviously is in charge.
Yes.
And Ducky, who is the medical examiner, has his own speciality. But Kate and DiNozzo, is there a pecking order of some sort?
Oh, I think absolutely. Since Kate is the newest, she's probably the lowest rung. And DiNozzo, we don't really know how much background he has, how much time he has, with NCIS, but we can assume it's probably more than a year or two because he's on this specific team. And at the moment, anyway, we don't really know how many people are on this team, or how many people work for NCIS. As we go through, as you go through the show, as the show continues, there are more and more new people that get added to the team as others leave. And we sort of see it's basically just how long they're there. Mm-hmm. That seems to be it. Okay.
So, okay, good. So a little bit of office banter. They've been looking for a case, perhaps, and I think one's about to fall into their laps.
You'd be incredibly correct, save for one quick little bit where after Gibbs says that he would rather shoot himself than go to this sexual harassment lecture, Kate sort of takes a moment and says, wait a minute, they teach you guys how to harass? And then there's an obvious moment of tension from Gibbs, who apparently also doesn't understand jokes. Mm-hmm. And then one of them, I think it's Gibbs, gets a phone call. It's always one of them. They always just get a phone call, and he grabs up his jacket and he starts walking away, and he says, there's a dead Navy commander washed up on a beach. So they are raring to go. Mm-hmm. So we get up onto this beach, and oh my goodness, the tension that we see already, the local Leos, which I hate, is a thing that I'm becoming comfortable with writing and saying. So Gibbs and the team arrive at the beach and are very dismayed and irritated that there is a small news crew present at the site of a corpse of a naval commander washing up out of nowhere on a beach. So they get there, they talk to this local law enforcement officer, and they have some harsh words for him.
DEA is working 2 dead drug dealers 3 miles north of here at Fort Story.
3 miles up the beach and you tied it to the commander?
They're all shot up. So's his boat. Got to be a connection.
I mean, I don't disagree with him.
It certainly seems to be. It's a fairly logical thing to assume. So that boat, as we established in the cold open, has been just thrown onto the beach, and then there's a dead naval commander who's also washed up onto the beach not far away from that boat. Both of them have bullet holes in them, and local law enforcement is already sort of putting connections between the two, much to the dismay to some degree of Gibbs. Although we also get another little tidbit here where Ducky, really for the first time we see, has a little bit of anger for this law enforcement officer.
Hey,
What we got, Gibbs?
Commander's wallet with the sergeant's prints.
You removed a wallet from a body without gloves?
I had to get the Vic's name.
He's not a Vic. He's a victim. Where did you learn crime scene procedure? Watching Kojak reruns?
Okay, now just hold on.
What else?
Well, the English express anger in a very unique way.
And it continues. He really lays into the guy.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, if I may, just to kind of set the scene here. Is the boat itself identifiable as a military boat?
No, absolutely. It is a personal fishing vessel.
Okay, and you did mention that, but I just want to clarify. And then also, they know that he's a commander, and I'm assuming they know that because he has been identified. But is he wearing any sort of uniform or military regalia?
No.
Okay, so they just know that he's a commander from the fact that he's been identified by this sloppy cop.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
So Gibbs and Ducky just really keep going on this guy, just being real real hard on him for not knowing crime scene procedure. And I mean, frankly, who can blame him? It makes their jobs harder. So we're focused on another part of the crime scene where they're looking at the body after they dismiss this law enforcement guy. Ducky's assistant, who's named Gerald, he's only shown up a tiny amount so far. He's in a little bit of episode 1. I don't know if he's in episode 2 at all. And they're just asking little things here and there about the body, talking about it. And the news reporter comes up to Gibbs and is like, hey, what can you tell me about what's going on here? And Gibbs asks, oh, where are you from? What are you doing? She's like, oh, yeah, I'm from this news network. And Gibbs just yells out, DiNozzo. And then DiNozzo comes up and it has him escort the news team off of the scene. There's not a whole lot that follows after this in terms of information. Gibbs gives Kate a little bit of leeway, gives her a little bit of independence to start working and doing some stuff on her own, start bagging and tagging different things from the boat while they work on the body. And then Gibbs and DiNozzo get in a car to go down the beach where the DEA, as it's been said, are working on the body of a few dead drug dealers.
With cargo ships off the coast, bring in coke.
I mean, I still feel like it's just too much of a coincidence that there's the dead commander, the shot up boat, and then these other guys kind of upstream a little bit also shot up. I mean, maybe I'm a bad detective, but I would assume that there's got to be some sort of correlation.
Correlation, however, as we know, is not causation.
Ah, man, when I said that, I knew you were going to call that. All right. Go ahead.
So also within that scene, Ducky is very heartened by the fact that the scene is kept in good condition, that none of the bodies are touched before they arrive there. Ducky is very happy about that. But then they search the bodies, they're gloved up, they search through it, and I think either in the back pocket of one of these guys or in like a little fanny pack or something like that, they discover just a huge wad of money, which really pushes what we were talking about earlier, really pushes the idea that it seems like the commander was plying in some kind of drug running, that he bought some drugs and something went wrong, or he gave him some money and was expecting drugs and didn't get them, and the relationship went a little bit sour. I just also want to note that the money in the clip is just like, it's pale white. It is the whitest film money I've ever seen in my life. So
it's like sun bleached or something? Or are you saying they just like did a poor job of getting a prop?
They just don't look like good props. Okay. But I mean, I'm sure it's hard to make fake money, but my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay, so after that, they go off the beach, they pack everything up, and Kate, because she was left in charge of the boat, she has a few complaints to make.
I didn't have to ride in the tow truck with that boat, now did I? You do this to all the newbies or just the females?
Do we look like sexist?
Ask me who's buried in Grant's tomb. It's the tougher question.
Okay, fun's over.
Okay, so continuing this theme of kind of tension between Agent Kate. What's her last name?
Bishop. Kate Bishop.
Kate Bishop.
Wait a minute. I might have that wrong because I think there's another character later on whose name is Bishop.
Well, also I think Kate Bishop is one of the Marvel characters.
I think it is. I think that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. But nevertheless, there's ongoing tension between Kate and DiBozo, right? Because he is sexist. So does that continue throughout the entire series, or do they ever kind of reconcile their differences?
It truly never ends. Caitlin Todd.
Caitlin Todd, that's right. Okay.
Oh my goodness, I'm a fool. There is a character named Bishop later on in the show, I promise.
Gotcha.
That's what I was thinking of. So after Agent Todd complains about this, and it is immediately disregarded by both of her male superiors, they just move forward and talk about stuff. Although we get a little bit of clue about this connection thing, Agent Todd reports that there were absolutely no drugs found on the boat of the commander, which shocks Gibbs and DiNozzo for sure. But whenever Kate is told about the cash, she was like, oh, well, you should have me take a look at it. And for some reason, they're like, well, why? because they apparently don't know that Secret Service handles counterfeiting. So they're just like, well, okay, whatever, and move forward with their lives.
Yeah, they seem to be shockingly ignorant of basic civics, judicial processes, right? Like civil rights, basic civil rights. And so
Oh, we're gonna get into some of that later. It's gonna be, oh my god, this episode. I meant to say earlier, but like this episode really just goes off the rails. We're not quite there yet. This is one of the moments that goes off the rails, but oh boy, in an entirely different way. So as we've covered, we're going down to the mortuary now, where Ducky is doing autopsies of these dead drug dealers, and in some effort to either just pacify his boredom or to gross out the present DEA agent, he is just telling just a real weird story.
Pacific has a number of different refreshments. I remember one. Where was it? New Guinea or Timor, whatever the case. The natives had this delightfully refreshing drink. It wasn't until years later I discovered it was made from a mixture of rum punch and water buffalo urine.
Okay, so yeah, we've established that he's an eccentric character.
Yeah, and I named that clip, "Hey y'all, what the fuck?"
Yeah.
I think that might be one of the first times we've sworn on the show, and I'm glad that it is. I'm glad that it is in this context, because I listened to that line once and I went, "Really?" And then I listened to it again and went, "Really?" And yeah, like he's not like a 19th century explorer, like wearing one of those big safari caps. And as I was writing these notes, I wrote, I don't know if I should dignify this line by even beginning to type it into Google.
Right.
And I almost did before hearing.
They've never seen a white man.
And then he says something about the chief's wife having a yeast infection. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to not look up anything about this.
Yeah, it was a more cavalier time in the early 2000s.
I suppose so. Just like, oh man. So really all we discover in the course of that, I mean, I don't even know if we actually learn anything. While in the middle of that whole conversation, he's just pulling a bullet out of a body, and then the DEA agent reacts in a gross fashion. After this, there is a short little scene where Gibbs is alone in the office, and there's a small TV across the office that he sees is playing a news report from the news anchor who was at that scene, and she is reporting on the fact that because of connections with possible drug running, the commander sponsored a urban basketball program somewhere in this city. I guess it's Norfolk, Virginia. I think that's where they're based. And because of his possible connection with that, it has been suspended.
It's not that the Norfolk Naval Base has been suspended, but that.
Oh, sorry, no. Yeah,
right. The little group activity with the did you say basketball? Was that right?
Basketball, yes. So
that's been suspended, right? Well, and also if he's hosting it and he's dead, then it would stand to reason.
Well, it doesn't even seem like, I don't really know what he would have been doing if he had been hosting it, because like I don't know what he would have been doing. It seems like he just, was just like, what if we, I don't know, put lights on a basketball court? That seems like the only thing he did. So Gibbs watches this and is very sad, and it's very clear that this is meant to tell us, the audience, that Gibbs doesn't want the public's opinion of service members to be negatively impacted by poor media. And this episode really feels like Gibbs teaching a news anchor how to do things right and how to be good and nice to the service members, because it's the most basic, like, condescending thing of a news personality that I could think of, because she just goes in and is like, it's exactly what you would think if you were trying to write a character like this news anchor in 15 minutes. It's very basic.
Well, it occurred to me when there was the initial tension between Gibbs and the law enforcement officer, I wondered if he was perhaps a little protective of what was going on because there was a fellow service member involved.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's always the case because every single person that investigate is a serviceman.
Right. Yeah, understood. And so there's like a PR, there's an optics aspect of this.
So Gibbs, upon hearing this, immediately leaves the office and then goes to where this community basketball court, this program called Urban Lights, was being run. And all we see there are no lights turned on because the program has been suspended. There are just two young men that are playing basketball together. And he's standing on the outside of the fence, this fence that is all chained up. And he sort of is talking about, oh man, I wonder how you guys got over there. And this is, I don't know who wrote this episode. And maybe for a few seconds, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that they were trying their best to earnestly and accurately depict two young black men that like to play basketball.
Answer me one question. Get the right answer. You have my word, these lights will get back on.
Shoot, 5-0. No, slow up, Bobby. What you mean? Right answer.
Give me the wrong answer. I can't help you.
Get out of here, Fed.
Before, as you were describing this scene, I just assumed that Gibbs was going to go down there because they've established in previous episodes that despite the fact that he has a crusty exterior, he's kind of a softie at heart. So it's not like he was upset that this thing wasn't going to happen, right? So it's unfolding in ways that are predictable to me. But please proceed.
I think that is steadily about to change.
Okay.
The predictability of this is going to change fairly quickly. So, and I mean, that is probably the clip that I played is like probably the most palatable of the dialogue between these two young men. And granted, I'm not knowledgeable nearly enough to say whether or not any of that was accurate to the way that people spoke and wherever they're supposed to be. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I'm also not the writer on a now very famous television show.
Right.
So maybe they shouldn't have done that either. But basically, yeah, he just sort of, they talk between themselves and talk about, Gibbs goes, if you tell me the right answer, because he's looking for information about the victim. And the two young men, whenever Gibbs asks them this, and the guy says, get out of here, Fed. They seem to think that Gibbs is going to walk away, when in reality, while they're talking back and forth, he's climbing up the fence and drops down to get closer to them and talk to them better. But while they're having this small little conversation, one of the men briefly brings up a guy named Sea Dog. I think he specifically says something along the lines of, they're going to want us to say that Sea Dog was dealing.
Okay.
And that is the only piece of information we get.
Okay.
That's all. So from here, we get some information. Kate is down in Abby's lab, and she's looking at these bills that were given to them, or that were found on these corpses. And Gibbs, after they figured out they're definitely counterfeit, they were counterfeit in a very specific and highly advanced way. So there's only a few different people that could have given these people this money. But in order to track that down, Gibbs sort of strong arms Kate and says, you could talk to some of your friends at the Secret Service and see if they could give you some information. And Kate's like, oh yeah, that's no problem. And then he goes, without telling their boss. She's like, come on. Because that's always what Gibbs wants. He wants everyone to give him information,
right,
and he doesn't want anyone else to know that he's getting information.
He's very secretive that way.
So Kate leaves, and then Abby's in a different part of it. And then for some reason, the two of them talk to each other in ASL.
NASL? Oh.
In
America?
Yeah, they just talk to each other in sign language.
Okay, without any explanation?
Yeah, they just start. And then Tony is like, you know, sign, and uh, he's like, you know, sign. Abby knows sign, and this is where we learn apparently that Abby's parents were, or that she's a coda, that she's the child of deaf adults. Um, which like I did not remember that little piece of information, but cool. They then reunite where they can hear each other, and Abby informs Gibbs that there was no gunshot residue found on the hands of the commander, which Gibbs is a little bit happier about, because it sort of pushes away the idea that the commander had anything to do with what was going on. So we have a little intercession here. We also learned earlier in the episode, whenever Tony was escorting the reporter off the beach, that he got her phone number, because of course he did. And Gibbs asks him, oh, hey, you still have that lady's number? How about you call her up for me so her and I can meet? So they meet.
I'm sorry. DeNozo got her number, but Gibbs wants to meet her?
Gibbs wants to meet her and sort of just give her a talking to about, journalistic ethics.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed the part. So it's the news the news anchor that he got the phone number for.
Yes.
Gibbs wants to kind of give her a talking to. Okay, I got you.
Give her a talking to about insulting U.S. service members. That's right. And gosh, this is such a jump. So earlier, whenever they were in Abby's lab talking about the counterfeit money, Gibbs tells the DEA agent that has been working with them on this case, hey, I know, or like, you guys need to find the local mob bosses or whatever of whoever whoever that is shipping in these products. Find them and bring them down here. Like, bring them to the morgue so that we can confront them with this money and with their dead people, so that we can figure out like who we need to be talking to. He asks the DEA agent to bring in these two mob bosses because he thinks that it will make some things more clear.
Okay, so let me just make sure I understand here. Yeah, so Gibbs has said to the DEA people that he just wants to talk to some people who are in the industry, the drug running industry, right?
Correct.
Local contacts, because they might be able to give him some insight into who these people were. Did I get that right?
Yes, and he wants to know where they got the counterfeit money from.
It just seems a little far-fetched, but okay. I mean, it's just...
Yeah.
Just as part of your routine workday, you're like, oh, I need to talk to some mob bosses. Can you find some?
Exactly.
Are there anyone around, right? And also, it begs the question, like, why would they cooperate in any way? Okay, all right. You know what? I'm going to suspend my disbelief and be quiet. Please.
Exactly. Like, some of the people in this show, like, they must have some sort of overwhelming persuasiveness to them.
Yeah.
Like I said, the rest of this episode, once we get to this point, is insane. I think there is a way that you could say or argue that this episode fits another one of the algorithms that is consistent with NCIS, which is that, like we had with Hung Out to Dry, that one follows a very static, like, plain, person dies, we investigate, there's a red herring, we figure out who it is, dramatic ending. And I don't know precisely the way that we'd be able to talk about this one well, but it feels like this one starts off, person dies, we find them, we investigate, then the case takes a turn. And boy, does it take a turn. So, like we previously stated, Gibbs has instructed the DEA agent to bring two local mob bosses that are known to work in the area that, sort of operate these drug rings into NCIS headquarters, so that they can identify their dead, to see whose dead it is, to see who was operating that night, and also identify where they got the counterfeit money from.
What possible motivation, and maybe this will be unfolding, so you can just tell me, just to kind of cool my jets, but what possible motivation would someone high up in a crime ring have to go help the feds? Right? Oh, yeah, sure. Let me just hand over a bunch of information. Oh, man, you found my counterfeit money. Thanks, man. I've wondered where that went. Like, okay, I'm going to suspend belief, but okay,
Yeah.
that's my reaction
So
to what you're describing.
okay, so most of what happens in the scene, like they bring them both down, and it's very clear that they haven't just brought them in; they've arrested them. Like they didn't ask them to come voluntarily; they arrested them and brought them in. And my other question for this is: if you had the grounds in some way to arrest them, why have you not already?
I mean, thank you for saying that, because that was going to be my follow-up question. But
Like
okay.
they bring them in, and then Gibbs very dramatically. Also of note is that Gibbs didn't bring them to the interrogation room, which is a place that we have seen in both episodes so far. I'm pretty sure, or at the very least last episode.
Yeah, and it seems like you kind of need that in a crime procedural. You need to have someone in an interrogation room. It seems like an oversight if you don't have that.
And he doesn't. He takes them both to the he takes them both to the mortuary.
Yeah.
So he's taking two high profile criminals to just get an unfettered look at just a small part of the lower level of some government building of an intelligence agency.
Okay. All right.
That doesn't seem smart.
It doesn't. It doesn't. But okay, I'm here for the ride.
So Gibbs brings them both down there, opens the lockers of the dead guys, and sort of waits for them to have a reaction. He brings in these two gang leaders, one of whom is a black man, the other of whom is a man who just generically speaks Spanish, and his name is Trujillo. His name is Frank Trujillo. And it turns out that these men that were killed are part of Trujillo's gang, I suppose. He questions the both of them, and then they sort of just talk back and forth about, these are my two guys, yada yada. Talk about where the boat was, why they were going out there, and it's revealed that they went out there without Trujillo's permission. They went out there without even getting permission from him, so they were doing something off on the side.
And that's generally not a good idea when dealing with drugs. And
Probably not.
And crime rings. Yeah, that's what I've learned from watching these procedurals.
So after they sort of deny, they sort of refuse to give him information, this happens.
This was found on these two boys in a cooler. It's counterfeit. It comes from a foreign government known to support terrorism. That makes you two dirtbags suspected enemy combatants under the Patriot Act. Tony, read them their rights. Put them on the first Navy transport to Gitmo.
Okay, well, there's a justification for the Patriot Act.
Episode 3. Yeah. It only took 3 episodes.
Yeah. We knew it was coming. I assume it's a bluff.
You would be correct. You would be correct.
Yeah. And it works. I assume it works.
So he does this, and Tony does the full thing. He says the Miranda rights, but he says you do not have the right to remain silent. You do not, he says you don't have all of these rights. I don't know if that's the rights that you're told whenever you get sent to Gitmo. I don't know what that process is like, but Tony seems to really relish in it a little bit too much. Yeah. Right after this, while Tony is still saying out the rights, the DEA agent just goes up to Gibbs and is like, "Hey, we don't have any proof that that's the case, and we cannot do this." I don't know if I should have done that, but Gibbs is like, "Watch me, I'll do it." So I guess they both just get arrested, and then apparently they just stay sitting in the morgue for a while Gibbs and the rest of them talk.
Wait, so they had already been arrested, though, right?
I think so. Somehow. Otherwise,
they've been super arrested. Basically.
I guess so. Otherwise, if they hadn't already been arrested, then that means that they willingly just went to the property of an intelligence agency. They just went there.
Yeah, these are not low-level guys, right? They're the heads of these.
No, they're like the bosses. Yeah.
Yes. So they basically supersized their arrest. Okay, I got you.
You were right. This is a bluff just to get them to eventually talk. There's a scene where Gibbs questions the two gang leaders while they're handcuffed in a mortuary where they could learn a lot about government property and use it to their advantage. I kind of already said that, but they eventually find out Trujillo, whose the members of his gang, were the ones who were unfortunately killed in whatever happened. He reveals that he has GPS locators on all of his boats, so he knows where whatever boat they were on ended up.
Oh, all right. Okay, so there's a missing piece there. So there was a boat that the commander was on that got shot to hell in a handbasket.
Yes.
And then there was another boat a couple of miles upstream where these other guys had been. But so they presumably had been on a boat because the guy that. So I'm just kind of redoing this for myself.
Yes.
The DEA guy said in the moment, "Oh yeah, they use these boats and they meet like other drug people out that are on bigger boats, I assume, that are bringing drugs in, and they ferry it in. So there's a missing boat. So not only do we have a murder on our hands, and there's some counterfeit money, and there's some illegal weapons possession charges probably in there somewhere. There's a missing boat.
There's also a missing boat,
Okay.
which either, it belonged to Trujillo, and at some point there was some kind of armed struggle, where guns were fired between the two of Trujillo's men who were either trying to get on the boat or fighting the people that were on the boat. We're not quite certain at this point. But one of his boats had gone missing, but he has trackers on them, so they're able to track it down. And they find his boat. It's just in a marina.
Okay.
And it's called La Eternidad, the Eternity. So they find this boat, and they're going to start, looking on it. There's a very stupid joke at the very beginning. The DEA agent has a drug dog, and the drug dog is named Tony, and it leads to this great exchange.
Bet he's a real stud. He's neutered.
It always goes back to something sexual with DiNozzo.
Always.
He can't help it. Even other people are harassing him. He's harassing people. People are harassing him.
And he's just constantly just getting hit in the face with rakes. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Beyond that, they find out that there was blood residue on the deck that looks like it had been cleaned up, but they're definitely, there was some stuff going on. They go through the bed, or the boat is a mess. There's absolutely a shootout here. And this is where I get into the part talking about how this show doesn't seem like it should exist without some kind of explanation for the idea that Gibbs has some kind of powers. Because what they do when he's looking at this boat is that he's looking at this wall that's covered in bullet holes, and there's blood everywhere. And then we just cut in black and white to a flashback of this firefight. And I know that this isn't what they're trying to say, but with the language of film, what they are saying is, this is what he's seeing.
Can I, just before you play the clip, can I just say, my wife and I were watching a new detective show on Netflix last night. There's, of course, a preeminent detective involved, and she's walking the grounds of the crime scene, and in a cringy way, it didn't happen, but I was waiting for flashbacks to occur, because that is a pet peeve of mine when I watch a detective show and they have the detective, walk the crime scene, and then somehow through some paranormal capability, they can just see into the past, right? And that is so annoying to me. God, I can't stand that. And so I was spared that last night in the show that we were watching, which is actually pretty good. It's called The Residents. But now you're saying you're going to subject me to that here.
Well, you're in luck, because I didn't pull that clip.
Ah, okay. But just knowing that it happened is annoying to me. So thanks.
Just knowing it, and it's so clear. I think it would have been better if they even just played the audio. That if they were just there was definitely, there were people shouting and there was a firefight and they were yada yada.
Yeah.
He goes back through the rest of this boat and he finds a little cabin that's got a bed in it, and it's very clear that someone was horrifically wounded on this boat during the firefight. And they were, being sort of bandaged up as well as could be done. Mm-hmm. Let me see. After this, Gibbs is rude to the DEA agent again, because of course he is. That's just who he is. And we have a brief little intercession we have a brief little thing between scenes where Kate is following up on the counterfeit money with someone from the Secret Service. She's in there, she's talking to him. They sort of walk along. And this was a perfectly choreographed scene by this friend of hers, because whenever they're talking, the friend lets her know, the person that we found out, or the place that we found these bills are coming from, it was such a big thing that we had to involve the FBI. Good old Joe Spano is like, hey, did you miss me? I'm back from episode 1, 2 weeks ago.
Okay, so it's the same guy. It's the same guy.
Yes, it's the same agent, Agent Fornell. He's a pretty consistent character throughout. He's got little episodes here and there throughout the seasons.
Okay, in general, we want to try to make these episodes kind of standalone. We want to have people too involved in the lore, unless that's what they want to do. But you'd have to go back to listen to episode 1 for this, because I'm going to refer to this. Is this the same FBI guy? There was a scene in episode 1 where it was a bunch of directors, and there was the big video conferencing screen on the wall, and there was, it was like the 2003 equivalent of a Zoom call, and they were kind of jockeying for who had jurisdiction. There was an FBI guy there, right? Is that this FBI guy?
No, so that was like the director. Right. In this case, this is the guy that threw DiNozzo out of the back of the van.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay, all right. Yeah, actually, it just occurred, thank you for that, by the way, that it occurs to me that DiNozzo gets thrown out of things a lot so far.
He does. He gets thrown, he jumps.
Yeah, so I don't spoil the surprise, but hopefully he gets thrown out of something in this episode.
Oh, my goodness. So they realized that the FBI had to get involved. Back at the marina, that scene literally lasts 2 minutes, and it's literally just to show, like, hey, this is big enough that the FBI had to get involved. They go back to the marina, and the DEA agent and Gibbs and DiNozzo are talking about how there are some women across the marina who are on a boat that the DEA agent has has interviewed and gotten a good amount of information out of them from. And they learned that there was some guy that was on this boat who was clearly very busy, working on a laptop, doing all this kind of stuff. And they call him gay repeatedly because the women waved at him and he did not wave back. So clearly, because he, just being a human being, was just like, saw 2 women wearing bikinis in the middle of the day and was like, hey, I'm not going to wave at these 2 people. Naturally, this is a gay person.
So they just say that. They're just open with, oh yeah, he was a gay guy.
They're just like, man, he must have been gay. Otherwise, he would have really wanted to have sex with these 2 random people that also just happen to exist here.
Did the women themselves say that, or did the agent say that?
No, it's just the DiNozzo. It's just the DiNozzo and the DEA agent that are saying.
I see. And the 2 women. So let me just set the mental scene here. There's a marina with a bunch of boats. These 2 women are in bikinis and they're sunbathing and presumably having, because you have fun on a boat, so they're just having fun on a boat. But then there's this guy on another boat that is within visual range of them, and he's working on a laptop, and that's suspicious.
He was just on a laptop.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Doesn't seem like that behavior doesn't seem that suspicious to me. Although I'm surrounded by laptops at the moment, so
I have so many computers. Man, I almost spoiled a little bit there, but I'll follow up that joke in a second. So after they finish searching the boat, they get the rest of the information. The DEA guy slaps a asset forfeiture thing onto the boat, and then DiNozzo goes, hey, don't you need permission before you put one of those up? And the DEA agent goes, I used to worry about stuff like that until I met you guys.
Okay, well, he was easily corruptible, but okay.
Yeah, like what a sad corruption arc. So Gibbs and Tony come back into the office, and they really just Gibbs, what's the phrase? Whenever he gets there, he sees Fornell, and it really fucks with his steez. Is that a phrase?
It's not one that I'm familiar with, but I think from context clues, I think I can figure out what it means. So he's not happy to see him there.
Yeah, he's pretty mad, and he's pretty mad at Kate.
That's right, because he said, "Don't tell anybody."
Yes.
Okay.
So, my God, this is where the episode really starts to just tumble into batshittery.
Okay.
So then we get this nice little exchange.
Much more.
Those serial numbers matched a batch of bogus bills passed by 9/11 hijackers. The killers aren't drug dealers. They're terrorists.
Here we go again, man.
Here we go again.
Yeah. Here we go again. 2003 this was filmed, right?
Yeah.
All right.
We have moved so quickly from like, oh, there's a dead naval commander, we throw him away, like absolutely nothing, like we haven't followed up with him at all. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble not laughing about how stupid this is.
Yeah,
Fournell comes in here, and then because of this, they go into the big screen room like we talked about before, and I guess the director of NCIS is told by the director of the FBI, who is the guy from before, that apparently the FBI has a database of terrorists. And so they're like, yeah, we have a database of terrorists that we weren't sharing with other intelligence agencies because we like to have a good hold on our information.
Well, that was one of the causes of 9/11, man. Right?
I think so.
I mean, that's why the Department of Homeland Security was created. Of intelligence sharing between and among the CIA, the NSA, and the FBI, and they were too siloed because there's this inter-service rivalry and so forth. And because all the signs were there, right? If they had shared information, that's why you have a DNI, right? The Director of National Intelligence to help synthesize. Okay, let me stop. I'm just gonna stop. Okay, go ahead. I'm with you.
So before they leave the marina, Gibbs has sent DeBozo. I had to get one in. Sends DeBozo off to talk to these two women that are on this boat to get some more information about who these guys were. Just as sort of in case we can't get any more info, let's throw this on there. And he goes over there, and one of the actresses is actually the noted actress from Lost. If you remember the blonde Australian actress from Lost.
Well, Lost is another one of those cultural phenomenon shows that I never watched. So
see, I have a fun story about that, which is that my entire family and I watched it entirely by borrowing the DVDs from our local library system.
Oh, it's very wholesome.
Yeah.
I approve. I mean, support your local libraries,
absolutely.
By the way, public. But so you have seen them. So if we exhaust NCIS, we can move on to doing Lost.
Gosh, I don't know if we could.
It takes a while to get there because what is it like?
It would take so long.
Like 78 million seasons of NCIS or something like that. Yeah.
So Tony is apparently he's like talking him up about what they were doing on the night that they saw this guy and what was going on. And he's like, hey, I've got some Chardonnay or he got some champagne or whatever, because, experiencing the same senses really jogs your memory again. So he has them just sort of smell the champagne to try and get them in the memory. And then the two of them also develop this absolutely ridiculous photographic memory. And this conversation is sort of happening at the same time as this big FBI database is going through and looking for people that match the information that they got because they found fingerprints at the scene, going through all of these things. And it finally, as they're both realizing this thing, they realize that the main terrorist that they're looking for was a guy that has a Saudi name, like most of the 9/11 hijackers. And he was wanted for a UN bombing in Baghdad.
So while Donoso is engaging in a ethically questionable method of interrogation of witnesses, the FBI is sharing information that it is withheld ethically questionable way. So there's ethics are in question all around here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Also, just like at some point out of nowhere, Abby, so they also somehow managed to discover, I can't even remember how, after Fournell is there and they're just like, there was some kind of van present somewhere and they're like, let's put an APB out on that van and, we'll keep an eye on it. And Abby decides now at this moment to mention the relevancy, or she finds it useful now to mention that she found on some of the victims traces of C4.
Okay, all right. This episode has gone from I've been watching it by proxy through you, has gone from what appeared to be a coordinated investigation of a crime scene to just yakety sacks, a bunch of different people doing a bunch of different things that may or may not overlap. Okay.
Yes. So while right after this, then they're just like, well, what could they be doing? Like, what is their plan?
Well,
Because
I have some insights into what you might use C4 for.
Yeah.
But okay, go ahead.
But they're like, what are they going to use the C4 for? What are they, what are they planning on doing? Are they going to target a building? Are they going to target a government building? What is it? Somehow, they land on the idea that they're going to try and create some sort of blackout event. They're going to try and take out power centers, and we end up with this.
Whoa, look at this.
It says 3 key failures in Virginia could cascade until every state from here to the Rockies is dark.
Yeah, more than says, it shows how.
Okay. Hey, you know what? I just want to ask a quick question before you proceed, because the utter violence of continuing to suspend my disbelief more and more has caused me to be a little bit disoriented. So I'm catching up a little bit. Did someone actually say earlier in the episode, once it was determined that they were terrorists, that they had Saudi Arabian sounding names? Did someone actually say that?
Yes, that is a line from the show.
Holy cow. Okay, all right. So, okay, sorry, I just want to make sure that I didn't dream that. Okay, so now they've found the plans on the internet, apparently, of how someone can just induce a blackout on the East Coast.
Yeah, because terrorists, whenever they're getting ready to do a terrorism, the thing that they check for first is like, hey, are these plans easy to access whenever you just look them up?
Yeah, I mean, several times I've thought about inducing a blackout on the East Coast, and I haven't known how. So, you go to Google, right? You go to Google.
Yeah. This is like that problem that authors always have whenever they're like trying to look up a bunch of really awful things because they're trying to write something into a book. And they famously don't worry about it looking suspicious because they're like, well, there's all those serial killers and terrorists that just Google things.
And the audience can't see the video on this. And normally I don't watch the video because I want to experience what they're experiencing. But I've been watching along here. And it looked like there were multiple links in the search that they... And also, I'm sorry, let me... So as part of the investigation, someone thought, hey, let's Google blackouts.
I genuinely, in my notes, I don't know how they got started on blackouts.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Because, to the best of my recollection, one of them says, hey, do you remember when we had that blackout some period of time ago?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that was what started them on it.
And so someone went to Google thinking, I wonder if there's anything on Google about inducing, coastal blackouts. And boy, we got a lot of hits. Jeez,
yeah.
Right? Because in the video that you showed, it didn't appear that they went to a single site. They just were reviewing Google results, right?
Yeah. And then they clicked on the first one, and it just happened to be the right one.
Right. Okay. So the
old school Google, man.
So the implication here is that the terrorists Googled how to do this.
I guess so. Either that, or they put up the web page.
Either think of at this point, I'm willing to believe either.
Yeah. Right. So they eventually realized that there are 3 power stations. And in order for this to successfully occur, all 3 of them need to be taken out at the same time. And if that's done, then the slack can't be picked up by the system, and it would cause these cascading blackouts. Mm-hmm. So immediately they're just like, okay, there's 3. We're in Norfolk. There's 1 in Fairfax. We go there now. Mm-hmm. And then it just cuts to them in a car.
Okay.
So they're just driving down the road as fast as possible, and they're just like, "Yep, we're almost there." And then they show up and they're like, "Man, how do we even know that they're going to be here? Or how do we even know that the terrorists that are going to blow up this power station with C4 out of nowhere are going to? How do we know that they're going to be here? We're not that lucky." And then they see the dude just sitting there, and they're like, "I guess so." But then as they're getting ready to approach, and it's just a guy sitting on his laptop, then we get this clip.
He could be a power company employee doing his job.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. All right. So they chose wisely because there's 3 possible power stations, and apparently they only have the staffing to go to 1 at a time.
Right? Yeah, they couldn't do a coordinated thing, even though they have the FBI.
Yeah. The FBI was like, okay, you guys don't seem like you need that much more help from us, so just do your thing.
Yeah.
And the power. That was not a power station. He was next to like one of these big transformer poles that you see like out in the rural areas. I had envisioned like one of these big way stations that's behind gates and stuff and has these giant transformers and so forth. But the clip that you showed, he was just like at the base of one of these big power transfer lines, right?
Yeah.
And it seemed in a fairly rural area, but he was worried enough to have his rifle ready.
Yeah, he just open.
Yeah, actually, that's another thing. They didn't have any sirens going.
Yeah.
So he just saw a car approaching and was a little bit skittish and just opened fire.
Yeah, he was just like, oh, well, there is a car.
I'm going to shoot it.
Yeah, I guess so.
I'm going to shoot it.
Right after they hit him a few times, he starts crawling towards it. He gets a few more numbers in. They get one more shot in him before he finally goes down, and they realize there was only 1 number left. If you'd only put in 1 more, then it would have knocked down. It would have activated the explosives.
Mm-hmm. I mean, isn't there an implication though that there are 2 other people at 2 other stations that are coordinating these efforts?
Yeah, and that they possibly succeeded.
Right. Yes. And is that? I mean, I don't want you to spoil anything, but is there a follow up there, or is that just to kind of move on?
No, there's no follow up.
Okay. It's like, well, this is going to teach those other 2 guys, right? That are out there.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Maybe he was doing this individually because he's setting them up to phones. So maybe what he's going to do is he's wiring up all of them to phones, and then he's going to call 1 number.
Okay.
But then there's a funny little quip that Gibbs has whenever we come back together. I will tell you the funny little quip that he's got.
Yeah. Am I correct in that we are towards the end of the episode?
We are right at the very end. I only have like 2 clips left.
Really?
Yeah.
It just is kind of a letdown. It just seems like we got to this really fast, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it just sort of unfolded in a zig. I see what you mean, how it kind of went off the rails, right? But the denouement here just happened so rapidly. Okay, I mean, the pacing seems off.
Yeah, wildly so. So I alluded earlier that Gibbs has this little joke bit. They say, "Oh man, if he'd put in 1 more number, then they would have blown." But then he goes, "Oh man, if only the guy had a little bit more technical know-how." And they say, "Well, I mean, he managed to set up 2 phones to respond to the same number." But he says, "Yeah, imagine if he had speed dial."
Okay, that's. Why are you doing this to me, man? Like you didn't have to put that clip. Okay, all right, go ahead. Right now, I have no response to that. It's just too fucking stupid.
I know.
You've ruined the whole. Also, I was enjoying this episode up into this moment.
Oh, it's gonna get worse.
Okay.
So after this, to my recollection, they just cut. Like, this guy is dead. They just leave.
Oh.
Or at least we as the audience, in terms of the camera, we just leave. We don't know what's going on.
Okay.
And following that, we get a little follow-up on the story earlier from the commander. This clip is called, "Is This What the News Sounds Like?"
The lights are back on tonight at Community Center Courts since Navy Commander Brian Farrell, founder of Urban Lights, was cleared today of any connection to the drug war, which claimed his life last Sunday.
He's dead, right?
Yeah, the guy that was dead, yeah.
So they were not going to proceed. They could have proceeded regardless, whether he was guilty or not.
Yeah.
They were going to punish these kids if the...
Yeah. Well, then now remember, there's that element which is like, oh yeah, since that one guy was a drug dealer, maybe we won't continue sponsoring a basketball court. Which, like, what are like? I didn't see any snacks. I didn't see like I didn't see a full brass band or anything. Like, they just had the lights on and the gate open so people could play basketball.
You know, that's a good point. That hadn't occurred to me. I guess maybe because I thought the implication that they were hosting it meant that that several things were happening, right?
Yeah.
But what you're saying is that they just unlocked the gates and flipped the switch on, and that was the extent of their involvement of hosting the night basketball.
We don't get any more information because all they say is the Urban Light community courts are back open. Like, what? Like, no one was like, oh, hey, I should take the key and turn on those lights. And they're like, no, 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 no. We cannot turn on some lights for 3 hours every night. We're the U.S. military. What do you think we have? Money floating around?
That's right. Yeah, they're not good at doing multiple things at one time. Wow. Okay. I want to say something insightful and clever and funny, but it's just so stupid, man.
I feel like that is the summary of so many of these episodes, which is like, I really wish there was a thing we could say at the end of this, but I feel like all that there is to say is what?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I'm wondering, and I'm concerned about the enjoyability of these episodes, both in terms of our interpretation and to our listeners, because if it's going to consist of you playing clips and us both being speechless at how stupid it was, then we can edit these down to just the clips and a few seconds of silence after each one.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? Maybe, there's this famous thing that a friend in high school turned me on to called Dragon Ball Z Abridged. And maybe it's time that someone do that with NCIS. And maybe, like, every few episodes are just going to be like 10 seconds long. And then there's going to be one episode where it's like, oh, here's 2 like full episodes because they're okay. And then we just continue. Like, maybe just every episode should only be about 2.5 minutes.
So I think one challenge that you could take away from this, I'm wondering how you could, if you could find just a few seconds of clips throughout this particular episode, and maybe some of them you've already drawn from, right? But stitch them together and still have the story be conveyed in like that stitched together accumulation of like 2 minutes of clips. So you get the same effect from watching the 60-minute episode.
I'm sure.
Probably
that'd be a fun little bonus we could try at some point, because I'm sure it's possible.
Try that.
My last little notes is that, again, we had the return of the anchor there, and there's a weird part, like I said, that this little B plot is Gibbs teaching the media how to do things correctly. Because, like, after she finishes doing that little report, she walks off to Gibbs and is like, is that enough for you? Like, as if she's mad about having to do it. And she's like, well, just because I filmed it doesn't mean that my producer is going to air it. And he's like, it doesn't matter because you're trying.
Is it going to be true that at the end of every episode, someone will be taught a lesson, or we will see, like in the second episode, Gibbs went back and finished building the treehouse for that kid, right?
Yes. Yes.
So is there, because it's a little morality play in a way, right?
Absolutely.
Are we going to see a lot of that?
I'd say we should be expecting it.
Okay, great. Okay, yeah. I thank you for lowering my expectations. Thank you for that.
See, this is why at other points, whenever I've considered this, and maybe this is a thing we'll consider in the future, that every now and then, we don't need to do an episode. Maybe now and then it's like episode 4. I can tell you everything that happens in it, but I'm going to tell you what, since this is a serialized show, maybe there's a very minor amount of character building and it won't matter later.
Yeah, I was thinking that at some point, and it might take many of these episodes for me to fully get into the groove, but at some point you could probably just give me a series of keywords and then I can tell you what happens in the episode. But also, speaking
it's like we could develop our own conlang.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. It's almost like a stenographer's shorthand for kind of describing the episodes. And, people could listen to our 15-minute episode and still get the same effect. And speaking, by the way, I wanted to call this out in terms of character development. the totality of character development we got out of this whole episode was that Abby knows sign language.
And also Gibbs knows sign language.
And Gibbs knows sign, but we don't know why.
I mean, we know Abby does.
Yeah.
We don't really know that Gibbs does, other than to talk to Abby.
Right. But that's it, right? That's the whole of the character development that we have from this episode.
I can't think of anything else, and I watched it like 2 or 3 days ago.
And maybe Ducky talking about his weird experience.
Being in, I can't even remember where he said. I think he said something about like the Pacific
Right.
somewhere.
Yeah. So, but that's just a continuation of kind of a joke that they started in previous episodes of how he had those weird experiences. But we find something new about Abby, but we didn't find anything else about any of the other characters.
Not really, no. Other than that they hate going to sexual harassment lectures, which really doesn't look great for them.
Wow, this has been a frustrating experience. This episode was dumber than the last two.
Oh,
right?
Undoubtedly so, yes.
Yeah, and the other two were pretty stupid, right?
Mm-hmm.
In fact, and I remember episode 2, Hung Out to Dry. Yeah.
Yes.
I remember episode 2, and it was just so dumb about how they got the killer to confess. It was just so far-fetched. And I realized afterwards, in the episode 2, the kind of funny thing that happened in the airplane once the killer had kind of confessed was that DiNozzo got pushed out of the airplane. Right?
Yes.
That's incredibly dangerous, man. Right? And I don't know why I had more of a reaction in episode 2. Maybe it's because it was so fucking stupid. It took me a couple of weeks just to realize how stupid it was. Like, what? He's not a trained paratrooper. What if he had died? Then you have yet another NCIS investigation about his death, right?
That would be so funny.
Oh, man. Yeah. And actually, now that I'm thinking, I'm remembering now episode 1, Yankee White, right?
Uh-huh.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
What are you doing to me? I remember these things. The deal there was that some terrorist had lined dry cleaning clothes. When clothes were being taken in for cleaning, they had lined it with poison.
With snake venom or something like that?
That's right. Let me ask this.
Yeah.
And you've seen all the episodes. Is there any episode where you're like, that was pretty good?
I'll let you know whenever we come to it.
All right, okay. I was hoping you were going to give me throw me a line there and say, yeah, you can look forward to it, right? But no.
I'm sure, like, whenever we come to one and I'm like, genuinely, this is going to be a fantastic episode. I mean, you know what? There is one I can think of that is within the first few seasons that shakes things up in a fairly interesting-ish way that I can say we're probably going to enjoy whenever we get to.
Okay.
But as for anything that like really breaks the mold, I don't really know what to tell you.
Yeah. Well, I am looking forward to the hacking episode.
Oh my God, that one, yeah. That one is just an all-time classic of just all television. All right, so
this has been a lot of fun. I really have enjoyed this, and I think that we're warming up to this a little bit. I think our first 2 episodes, they're great. Don't get me wrong, but I think I'm feeling a little more at ease and just calling out just how dumb this show is.
So I think like we have talked about a little bit here and there, or like we've talked about in a few past episodes, if we had to rate these, and I can't remember what we decided on like total best episodes on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst NCIS episode to the best NCIS episode.
Right.
Like what number would we give this? I'll give mine 2, but I want to know what yours is for the 3 we've seen so far. What are you thinking?
All right, yeah, and just to be clear, right, I am grading this on a curve, right? So, closed system. I'm grading these episodes against each other, not against, like, premier quality television, right? So, I would say, just trying to, because I want to be, I don't know why, but I feel like I should have some sort of, like, editorial integrity about how I rate these shows. I don't know why I'm feeling that way. I would say probably the first episode was the dumbest, right? Like that whole conceit was really stupid. The second episode was watchable. I didn't watch it, right, but I can get like how it went from A to B to C, and then whoa, look at D, right? This episode went from like A to blue, right? Like there was what, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
I'm gonna say the first episode I would give like 2 stars. The second episode I would give 3 stars. This one I'll give 2.5.
I can understand that. I can agree. I think from a pure point of having watched them so many times, especially the first one. I've seen the first one so many times that I can't remember what I gave the one from the last episode. And I can't remember if I gave a score for the first one. The first one I would give like it's a solid 4 or 5, because if I saw that today, first of all, I don't watch television anymore. But if I saw that today, I would be like, no, I'm not going to keep watching this.
Yeah.
But like this episode, in terms of sheer ridiculousness, I would give like a 6 or a 7.
You know, I was going to say that I have a sample set of 3 episodes.
Right.
And I say this with pity. You have a sample set of hundreds of episodes.
I do.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
I had to mute myself briefly because I was sniffling from how upset I am over my innate knowledge of this show.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty angry at what just happened here. I'm probably going to go out and rob a liquor store. So let's see. We did our game, right? And we rated the episode. And so those are 2 traditions that we have now. Are there any other traditions that we're missing? I don't.
All that's really left to say is I hope you enjoyed the episode, listeners, and I hope if you would like to contact us, let us know what you think about the show, about the episode, all of that stuff. You can send us an email at gibbsittomestraight@gmail.com, or you can contact us on Blue Sky. We are GITMS Podcast on Blue Sky, I believe.
And that's Gibbs, Gibbs, gibbsittomestraight@gmail.com.
That's correct.
Great. Okay, I can't wait until we have a website, YouTube channel. We're gonna expand out to Instagram. There'll probably be some TikTok stuff if they don't ban TikTok. There's going to be a media empire.
We're going to just flood the zone with so much thoughtful but enlightening and hilarious critique of NCIS that no one will know what to do with themselves.